And I'm going to be talking about a topic near and dear to our hearts as human beings, and that is how to turn afflictive emotionality or painful emotions into wisdom, using techniques brought to us through the Tibetan tradition of Vajrayana Buddhism primarily. So let's jump right in. So, when I was, before I started out in Buddhism, I'm talking 30 years ago, I was, I had two streams going in me. And one was I was really, really curious about the real nature of reality, delving deeper into the nature of our consciousness, and then the nature of the whole universe, really on a deep, penetrating level. And there was one side of me, kind of the holy Yudron, and then on the other side of me, there was the person who was, emotionally really out of control. It was like the metaphor that's used is like you're on a little tiny boat or like a canoe out in the middle of an ocean in a hurricane. You're being tossed around from wave to wave, right? And through the whitecaps, and it feels like your emotional life is controlling you. And it seems random and unpredictable and kind of terrifying. And I had myself had a lot of anxiety. My gosh, at that point, I was so anxious that I could hardly get out of bed in the mornings for a period of time there. Have any of you all had like a nervous breakdown before? You don't have to say. And there's something about those late 20s or mid 20s that are really torture sometimes. And then in addition, there were other times when I just was really, really depressed, and it was like it seemed like it was happening to me. Definitely, I would have said this is happening to me. It was I couldn't even fathom that this was coming from my own mind, my own way of relating to what was going on in my life. So a lot of the Buddhist teachings really are addressing this form of mental suffering, most of them. And Guru Rinpoche gave some advice to Yeshe Tsogyal about it. We've been talking about last couple of sessions the wisdom Dakini Yeshe Tsogyal from the 8th century, and I started off talking. She asked Guru Rinpoche to sing her a song, remember, that was going to help correct, because she'd done a lot of practice and she hadn't gotten over some root obscurations and some really dense clouds there apparently. And her teacher Guru Rinpoche came and gave her some advice in the form of a song, which she requested and which she fainted when she heard, which is a wonderful teaching, right? So really, in the first section of advice that he gives, he is talking about this, how to work with your mind. In fact, he goes way back. She'd been doing some very high practices, ostensibly. He goes back to basics, and he talks about the Mahayana, the Bodhisattva teachings, about being aware you have Buddha nature, of course, but also having a sense of cultivation over a long period of time, working to perfect generosity, patience, perseverance. I'm not remembering all 6 paramitas. Meditation is another one. And he goes through those, kind of forbearance, courage, these kind of qualities of continually shaping herself into a great bodhisattva, somebody who's imbued with love and compassion and totally selfless, this kind of thing, but over lifetimes. And then he says, well, this is what I want to say, actually. I'm going to interrupt myself because if you think about how do we work with our painful emotions, the first, common sense is the first step is what? We're going to try to, tamp them down, right? It's like, get a grip. Let's, that we have to control these emotions. And, when you press down, you press down, you press down, you know what happens, right? What happens? Well, oh, no, I'm not mad. I'm not mad, really. What would there to be mad at? It's just a fact. If you cared about me, you would have done it the other way. But what's there to be mad at? There's passive aggression, as we call it in our modern society. And then there's simply, trying to do mindfulness meditation or shamatha meditation regularly, which, thank goodness, a large percentage of society is tuned into this now. And, when your mind goes thinking and so forth, bringing it back to an object, a point of concentration again and again and again. And it does pacify you, it does help. And there isn't some continuity usually between sessions, but there's some non-continuity too, right? Have you had this experience where you're doing, like mindfulness meditation, and everything's cool in your session in the morning, but you get to work and somebody's just seems like they're from a different planet. You can't believe they're saying what they're saying and doing what they're doing. And all this comes up and they're bad and you're good, or maybe you screwed up and you're terrible and they're awesome. And this whole, then all suffering comes into play, right? So that's sort of real basic Buddhism, really, is to pacify like that with shamatha meditation, really basic level. And then the next level with on the Mahayana path, this Bodhisattva path he talked about, in addition to consciously cultivating virtue, right? You're cultivating insight meditation. There is insight meditation before the Bodhisattva path as well, and you're looking and trying to find your identity. You break down the sense of self that you have, the sense of other that you have, and like that. So then, and this takes, the Buddha said, this kind of Mahayana approach, Bodhisattva approach, takes 4 incalculable eons. But that's the thing, is these bodhisattvas don't care. The harder, the better, right? So so then Rinpoche gets to teaching Vajrayana methods. Vajra means like indestructible. It means lots of things. It's a stand-in word really for emptiness and the power of the realization of emptiness in Buddhist traditions. Vajrayana means way, vehicle literally, the Vajra vehicle. And so and also Dzogchen, the great perfection. He says the following to her. This is on page 155 of that book, Life and Visions of Drime Kunga. I'm trying to read, nobody likes to be read to for long periods of time. And besides, the way you read Dharma books is not like you read ordinary books, even nonfiction. You go through 1 line or 2 lines or 3 lines at a time, and then you let it penetrate. Maybe you have it sitting by your bed and you read it before you go to bed and you go, I really want this to come in, merge my mind with this. Am I right? So here's what he said in a few lines, 5 lines. The phenomena, there's that word again, of your 6 sensory avenues are your own self-manifest expression. Firmly resolve that this is the unborn nature of mind. The 5 poisons are the 5 wisdoms, which are the expression of the 5 dimensions of enlightenment. Come to a conclusion that they arise unimpeded, free of attachment. Translation by Chonyi Drolma. And So what is he talking about with all these, Tibet? When we study Dharma from Tibet, there are enumerations, numbered lists. And why? Because you got to memorize key points. So they'll have an outline. And even this song is in an outline, I realized. I sort of dismantled it and found this outline. Usually, they'll tell you what you're going to tell you. And then they tell you, so they do a sort of outline, give you the outline in short. And then they go through the outline points one at a time. And you can find this structure again and again, even in the Song of Rinpoche, spontaneously uttered. So the phenomena of your six sensory avenues. What are your six sensory avenues? Well, how many senses do we have? Right, in our culture, 5, right? And the sixth sense we talk about, like intuition or something in our Western culture. But in the Buddhist philosophy, it has a very specific meaning of sense impressions, feelings, perceptions, and volition, our mind. So our kind of these functions of our mind are sort of like physical functions of our mind, the functioning of our brain. This kind of literal, like not enlightened anything. Here are our way. So these are called avenues, right? Gateways, because this is how we encounter everything around us. All the people. This is how we are relating to the world through our human senses. And eye is the eye sense organ, I'll call it, of that takes in vision, right? And the ear is the sense organ of taking in sound. And tongue is the sense organ of taste. Often in the art, art is so wonderful in Tibetan tradition. The depictions of touch is the body, and touch is wrinkles. So I've got wrinkles on my neck. They'll show like 3 wrinkles on the neck. I think I've actually managed to manifest them. And that represents a sense of touch. So if the 6 avenues are your own self-manifest expression, so it's basically saying that you, this is your experience. This isn't somebody's ultimate truth out there. You're not seeing things the way they actually are. Who knows if there even is an actually are to things, phenomena outside, or even seeing yourself the way, because there isn't any self to see, right? So you're seeing based on your psychotherapy will go into your habitual patterns of ways of thinking of this life. But also, in Buddhism, we believe in countless lifetimes. We've been treading like this, ingraining these habitual patterns over and over again. That's called karma or bakchak. This habituation to certain ways of seeing things, certain ways that concepts come into our mind. You know how much, like even your sister or brother. I think Lori, who's watching today, the other day we were talking about how we're completely different than our sisters and brothers, the way we look at the world oftentimes. Isn't that right? And so it's theoretically we're made of the same genetic material, more or less, and yet we came out completely differently. So that's a testament to the fact that we have karmic underpinnings. So instead of seeing them as truth, you see them as these arising. It doesn't have value. There's not bad or good. It's just coming. It is the 360-degree encounter with how you see things, with how you experience things. And there's no value on that. There's no judgment related to that. As soon as you make a judgment, it's not so naturally risen or self-manifest. And it becomes your world very solid. That tree over there is out to get me. A branch fell on me. It's clearly mad at me. So those 6 sense organs, internal, external objects, and paired with their called sense bases are called ayatanas in Sanskrit. If you're that kind of person who likes to know Sanskrit names. So what did Rinpoche go on to say? Firmly resolve that this is the unborn nature of mind. The nature of your mind is what? Buddha, awakening. And instead of, actually, if you look at everything without concepts and with completely nakedly, fresh knowing, awareness, present witnessing with no witnesser, nothing to witness, and yet witness and witnesser appear. It is actually kind of the nature of your mind, what you experience, this self-manifest expression. This is about as deep as we get on this YouTube channel. And as far as we're going to go into the Vajrayana. So, hello, thank you for coming, you wonderful people who are here live. So then his next observation was the 5 wisdoms of the 5 wisdoms. Well, this has become almost as like people who like astrology, like classical homeopathy, like the what are the INTJs, Myers-Briggs, and Enneagram. They like orderly schemes that divide every kind of being constitutionally into different groups. Love the system of 5s, the 5 Buddha families, and their associated afflictive emotionality, and then when liberated become 5 pristine consciousnesses or wisdoms. And so whole industries have sprung up around the 5 wisdom Buddhas, the 5 Dakinis, and I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek here, and working with the 5 wisdoms and so forth. So what this means, they're dividing all our whole experience of afflictive emotionality into like 5 broad categories. What are they? I'd say throw them in the box, but by the time there's such a delay. By the time you got them up there, I'd be done. We have, well, I don't have to look at a piece of paper, right? So we have anger, right? And aversion. And then I'm looking in the directions because I have directions associated with these. Over here to my right, we have pride. In the back, we have desire. Over here to my left, we have jealousy. In the center, we talked a lot about ignorance last week, or stupidity, 2 words in Tibetan. And these are liberated into what is anger liberated into? Actually, it's not liberated, isn't quite the word. Transformed into, what can anger be transformed into if you rest in your sort of the nature of your mind with anger? Well, there's a kind of mirror-like, we talked about, a little bit mirror-like wisdom. So this pristine consciousness that's just bright and clear, crisp. That's kind of what, if you take away, when you're angry in a direction, right? And when you expand it out into a panorama, and you relax, if you could possibly do it in that moment, and that is not easy to do because we feel really solid about I at those times, right? But if you could relax and let the space into that, you'd notice your mind is bright, clear, present, uplifted, all sorts of wisdom qualities. And we could go around the circle, but I don't necessarily need to do all of them. But the center is ignorance, and it has this kind of heavy, can be even like depressed, spaced out quality that can blossom into all accomplished wisdom. So that's like the Buddha family. Buddha family, it's called, and symbolized by the color blue. And then What direction do we have left? Over that direction, we have envy or jealousy, and that's liberated into, all accomplishing activity. All accomplishing activity. So if you take away the energy of saying I don't like you, and then you just rest with that energy, it's like anything can be done. So this is very fun to play with, and it's the next level up. It's not like the ultimate level, the ultimate style of dealing with afflicted emotions, but it's a stepping stone. And I am of the school that we need stepping stones, because I'm kind of I started out with a really heavy, difficult mind with a lot of entrenched, firm, rigid beliefs about the world, and also a lot of intellectuality, which just is an obstacle sometimes. It makes your mind really complex, and you rationalize everything with incredibly well thought, reasoned baloney. So this growing gradually was really important for me. I'm not saying I'm done. Far from it. So let's do that. We're going to pause here, and we're going to work with do a little practice. So I'm going to create a visualization for you, and you won't remember all the parts of it unless you're familiar with this schema, but that's okay. Imagine you are in the center of your own sacred circle, and you are the male blue Buddha, representing the Buddha family, embracing your female Buddha family consort. And the feminine principle here represents the elements, like everything the world is made of, subtle and gross elements. And you are the wisdom of. You are the Buddha family wisdom of the Dharma Dhatu, ultimate truth, really, the place of ultimate truth, sky of truthiness. And around you in the front of you is another Buddha couple. They're white, embracing each other, and they represent anger purified into mirror-like wisdom. To your right is a yellow or golden Buddha couple, and they represent liberating and transforming pride into great evenness, equanimity. And behind you, there's red Buddhas together, and they are representing desire transformed into discriminating wisdom. And then over there to your left is the green Buddhas hugging, embracing each other, and they are representing jealousy, envy transformed into all accomplishing wisdom. Then you sit. I'm standing, but you can sit. And you're shining out rays of rainbow light. And any Buddhas aren't included in this. You're sending out and you're making light offerings to all those Buddhas. And they're sending back blessings. In the form of light rays too. Lights go out, the lights come back, and then out they go again. Lights from you, and you're accomplishing all enlightened activities, and you're waking up all sentient beings. If there's anybody still not a Buddha in your environment, human or non-human, you send them out lights, and the light touches them, and they become Buddha. Thank you. So that kind of training is belongs to Tantra or Vajrayana Buddhism, and it's taught to you by teacher. You know, it's done in a personal relationship that you go through the process of getting the transmission of the text, and then the empowerment or initiation ceremony that brings you into the sacred circle of that Buddha, whatever enlightened being you're manifesting, you're going to manifest, and then gives you the liberating instructions, and answers your questions, and so forth. So that is, and you treat them with respect, because you're learning in this process to view everything as pure and to drop the whole so-called dualistic structure of dividing into this and that, good and bad. All that judging and evaluating, that conceptual mind, you can play with it for fun, but taking it really seriously is the source of suffering. And so all this complication, it can be hundreds of deities in this described mandala, and you have a text and you'll read through, and there'll be songs and feasts, and who knows what might happen. In part of a lot of ceremony could be brought in, or you could do it in a little low-key way of yourself. And these are like training wheels for teaching our mind about its Buddha nature. Really, not being a theory. It's out there somewhere that you have awakening within you, a potentiality for that. But bringing it into your experience. And it's wonderful. Called Sadhana are these texts with which we work. And they're paradoxical. They have elements in them that are like Zen koans. Like there's a boundary, there's a protection dome, and then at one point you're driving out unenlightened beings, or other points like we just did, you're sending out light beams to unawakened beings and waking them up. But how could there be any unenlightenment in this dome, So as you're working with it, it's like it's a process. You take the sadhana, you get the empowerment, you get the reading transmission, you get the instructions, you take that home. And then you do your personal process of letting it unwind you, unwind all your baloney, and bring you home to who you actually are originally. So, and that, So that's that level. And Rinpoche wraps up in these few lines we touch base with. Come to a conclusion that they, meaning the arise unimpeded, free of attachment. 5 poisons are the 5 wisdoms, which are the expression of the 5 dimensions of enlightenment. That's the 5 kayas for you Dharma geeks. Come to a conclusion that they arise unimpeded, free of attachment. So in simple terms, we don't have 2 minds, a bad one and a good one, in the same body. It's all global. We have this latent capacity to abide in pure present wisdom awareness, seeing the non-dual constantly, poised in a state of seeing the non-dual nature of reality. We really do. And all this is just like a veil. All this storyline that corrupts that beauty is like a temporary veil. It's very superficial, and it can go away like fog dispersing in an instant. Wouldn't that be wonderful? So let's do a little practice before we go with how to make it go away in an instant. Because that brings you to the next level. And this is, I'm touching on walking on thin ice here, but just to have a little taste, experiential taste of how the Great Perfection might handle the same thing, or Mahamudra. These are names of practices that go beyond all that complexity, and they drop the training wheels. They drop any fabrication, and they have you work nakedly with each instant. Your Lama or teacher introduces you to that state, helps you experience it so that you can get a taste, and then you can recognize it and learn to touch base more and more and more with that state without a lot of contrived ritual and music. Or you can keep doing that stuff if you like it, and most people do. But at some point you can just sit and drop all of that. Isn't that amazing? So, and then there's no 5 this and 4 that and 3 that. It's just you and the vast expanse of your nature. Resting and awakening. So how we can practice that is take a, whatever it is, if there's something that's upsetting you today, and, or if it's something's the thing that really gets your goat, bring it to mind. We won't do this for very long because it's difficult. Bring it to mind and feel it. Say something to yourself about it that really makes you, reminds you, for example, how ticked off you are about the situation, or how sad it makes you feel, or how jealous it makes you feel, let's be honest, or how puffed up it makes you feel. When you, oh, I'm special, I got this award. I'm Lopan Yudron Wama. Bring it up and really feel it, and then feel where it is in your body and look at it. Just relax with it, be present with it. And instead of, this is very important, Rinpoche says, don't meddle with it, don't play with it, don't be like you're doing mindfulness meditation and bring your attention back. It's hard to get out of that habit once you've gotten into it. It's a good one, but it has to be at some point dropped, because it's not a permanent solution. It has very slow results. So you sitting in a relaxed, comfortable way, you let this feeling come up and build it up as much as you can inside. And be present. Identify where it is, if it is located in any place where you feel it. And just witness it without judging. Bad Yudron, you're angry. Bad Yudron, you're sad. Lori, Tenzin, Maria. Just be with it. See what happens. Not be with it trying to recreate it. Bring it up and then let it rest. Just let it be. Don't meddle with it. If any of you out there are doing this, have just done that for a couple of minutes, throw a comment in the comment box if you feel comfortable about what happened when you sat with it instead of trying to push it away or transform it into, the appropriate wisdom. You sat with it just as a kind of energy. Sometimes it might even have a color or shape in your body. At first, it can be like you're constipated, and it doesn't change. So when you're first doing that practice, you have to have patience. It's a little uncomfortable. You don't chase after it, as the famous saying goes. You don't chase after it to try to recreate it. And you don't, what's the word? Run away from it. You let it be. Don't meddle. Don't fabricate anything. So Lori says it floated away. I didn't push it. It's a relief, isn't it now? It is a relief. And then, Lori, this is much more effective than anything else we do. I'm going to be level with you because you do that over time. And at first, like I said, it's like you're constipated and it floats away slowly. But as you become habituated to dealing with your afflictions this way, not even dealing with them, letting them be, being present without labels, it goes faster and faster. So if you're practicing regularly, or even you can get beyond even doing a contrived practice. These great yogis, they didn't need to sit down. They would demonstrate sitting down and doing a puja for us. We knew Lama Tarchen Rinpoche, we knew Lama Pema Dorje Rinpoche. They may have maintained the outer appearance of doing formal practices, but really all the time, coming up, going through. And if you've met these old yogis from Tibet, they're different than us. You can see it, you can feel it, you can taste it in them. Afflictions, if they come up, I've been in the worst situation with those guys, when terrible things happened, and it would do things that would turn me inside out. And you watch them, and they're like, "Oh, that's happening." And it's not apathy at all. They do care about people that are going through suffering, but they aren't suffering. If something really horrendous happens, maybe it would flash across them for a short period of time. Ruff, and then it was gone. So we can be like that. These are tools we have available, working with a lama, teacher, coaching, and working ourselves. We take a lot of responsibility. These high practices are really, really, really about self-responsibility, taking ownership. What are you going to say of your own mind, of your own, that ocean that was tossing us around at the beginning of the time we had together to today, saying, "Oh, that's my ocean. There's nobody else can liberate this ocean but me."